Yo, what up? This is Mike Brown, and this is The Art of Letting Go. Today, I have a special guest in the building. A really special guest because we've traveled together, and that's for me, that's a little more intimate than just hanging out with people locally, and to be able to travel well with people.
Yep.
Is different.
So true.
It went out the country. Like it ain't like
We
it ain't
went
like
out
we
the
went to San
country.
Diego or we went out the country, and
Yeah.
that was just a magical experience for me, and really transformative.
It was.
Would you mind introducing yourself to the people?
Hello, people. My name is Angie. And I know you sent me like, what's your bio or something? I'm like, what do I say? I think I still need to practice how to introduce myself. But pronouns, sure, she, ella, her. I am a social worker by day, creative artist, new to podcasting, witchy, spiritual person all day. Yeah, and I'm excited to be here. I feel like you've been such a big inspiration for me, Mike.
I appreciate that.
And I see you, like I hear your episodes and just really being so brave and like following your dreams and goals, and it's inspiring. And I love to be around folks that are like really challenging themselves to do good in the world, but also just like light themselves up.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's not always easy, but I just try my best. How are you feeling today?
I woke up with some pain. I deal with a lot of like chronic pain. So this morning I was like so stiff. I had to do some yoga, which was really helpful. But I feel okay.
Yeah.
I feel tired. I've been exhausted lately. So, but what kind of motivated me is like, all right, I'm going to hang out with Mike. We're going to talk, shoot the shit, and
Right.
inspire each other. I was really hoping to inspire myself in this conversation. So I felt really, really excited to be here. So
that's what's up. I'm glad to have you here. And I know you mentioned your podcast, and I want to say congratulations for starting your podcast, because like that's the hardest part, is just to start it.
Yep.
And it was just, I don't know what I was expecting, but it was just so dope, like hearing your voice, hearing the music. Like it really felt like you, and it always makes me feel peaceful to listen to it. So congratulations. What is the name of your podcast?
It's Sagrada Casa. So on IG, it's SAGRADO.CASA. Sagrada Casa. And then, I'm streaming on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple.
That's what's up.
But thank you for saying that.
Of course.
Because that's how I feel about yours. Like, I listen and I feel like, his voice is like so smooth and relaxing. And I think that's kind of the vibe I wanted to do too, of like, I'm just talking out into the universe, and it's very therapeutic. So I get why you do it.
Yeah.
And you continue to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's such a like great outlet. And it's cool to like create community around your thoughts and how I'm feeling, or just certain themes and topics that's like on my heart and mind. So yeah.
What inspired you to start? Like when you what made you want to start a podcast?
I definitely needed to do something creative. I feel I've always been a creative person. I'm the type who will start different hobbies. So this was just like, I need something where I could use my voice though. Yeah. Like I'll do ceramics, or I'll do jewelry making. There's so many things that I'm like, I'll step into it, but I needed to do something where I share what I'm thinking, because I hold so much in. I'm such a as a therapist, I create so much space for other people. Yeah. And that's my job, like to be there for others. And you take a back burner in that role. So here I'm like, outside of just therapy and like friends, like let me really share something that's been on my heart that could maybe reach other people or not, but just to kind of say the things without like someone talking to you back too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't want to hear your opinion or your advice. I just want to say the things that's on my head.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, because this is something that I have a challenge with, is how do you not take on other people's stuff? Because as a therapist, I know you hear a lot and that's your job, and it's not my job, but in my personal life, I think I make people feel so safe that they unload a lot on me. And I'm getting better at not taking it on, because for a while it made me just want to just not even want to be around people and just want to like just be in my own space and be safe. But I'm trying to find balance in being connected to the world and also staying connected to myself. But how do you balance that?
I mean, I am intentional about creating space for myself. I realize I'm an introvert extrovert. Like I like to talk to people. I do get energy from this or from like being among a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But then I know I have to go back home and re-energize myself with myself. You know what? I think it's a constant practice still. I don't think I got this thing down because every day I have different energy I could give. I would say it's gotten better since I started in this field, like 10 years now.
Yeah.
I think in the beginning I'd have a really hard time. I would take it on so energetically. I burnt myself out. I'd like turn over a lot of like just different jobs. I'd just go to different work just to kind of like start new and fresh. It was hard to feel settled in it. And I would start doing a lot of things. Like yoga was a big practice that I started for myself to just come back to my body, because I just realized like I hold so much in my body. Like I could walk around and feel like I'm good and chill, but my body's achy as fuck, and that's where I'm holding all of the things. So I knew that the practice I had to do to like let go was through my body. And in community, I love being in spaces with people who are doing the same and are feeling the same way. So I started going to like this yoga studio in East LA called People's Yoga. Have you been to it?
No, I haven't.
It's amazing. It was like two women of color who started it. And I think that's what really like opened my eyes. I'm like, oh, yoga could be for me too. Because, I was able to see myself in it. And also just to see people like step out of the grind and like create space for others and create a job and a business out of that. That was amazing to see. But it's still hard. I think right now how I create that energetic protection for myself is meditation every single day. Having really trusting people that I could unload in the way that they're able to take that, and checking in with people. Like, can I vent to you? Right. Like just checking in with others. But I still struggle. I don't think it's something that I've perfected, and I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And it's funny, like just in talking to you right now, I'm recognizing how much we connect and why we connect, because I'm very much so an introvert. I always say I'm an introvert with extrovert tendencies. Because I do enjoy to be around people. I do enjoy community. Yeah. And, the first thing I thought about when you mentioned community was the skate community that you started. And
with Amanda and Danielle.
Yes. That was so dope.
It was, wasn't it? That was amazing, because that was a way to get into our bodies, but it was fun. And it was with like friends, family. Yeah.
What was it like for you having to step away from that community?
The skating community?
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why I had to, just for myself, because I had a really bad injury rollerblading.
Yeah.
Where I fractured my spine. Damn. And yeah, it's scary to think that, wow, like I broke my back. Like I literally broke my back.
Damn.
And that scared me. I mean, I literally couldn't get out of bed for a week. I had to slowly learn how to just bring in movement that felt good. I had to rest so much more than I ever had in my life. And that was hard because that's where I realized I'm such a busybody.
Yeah.
Like I want to be always busy and doing stuff. And here I had no choice but to just sit with myself and my thoughts. And ooh, that was a lot.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm holding so much. And it was just hard to rest in the beginning. I had such a challenge with it. And also just dealing with pain. I've never had to manage pain this much.
Yeah.
And I was so hard on myself. I really wanted to heal so faster than I physically could. And also asking for help was really hard. Like the idea that I had to rely on my parents again for certain things was hard because I'm like, I'm an independent person. I don't need anyone. And no, that's a lie. You need people. And especially when you're injured and you need them to help you out with stuff. So that was heartbreaking because it was such a great outlet. That was fun. And we created a community around that. So I think it was really, like, it was a bummer.
Yeah.
And I think I scared other people too. They're like, fuck that. I'm going to stop before I fall and injure myself too. And I'm like, and most of us were like in our 30s. Like, now recovery is different.
Yeah, it is. I was just telling somebody that, like, as soon as you hit that 35 threshold, it's like, it's hard to recover. Back. Yeah. I feel like I injured my ankle last year and it has not been the same since.
What happened to you?
Playing basketball, rolled it. And when I was younger, that ankle injury, take a week or two.
Right? Yeah. Now
it's been some months. It's been some months. And like I'm really accepting though. And what I realize is that a lot of people don't accept aging.
Oh.
And
me. I'm like, what is this? No, I'm not supposed to age. Everybody else will, not me.
Right.
Though.
Right. And I think it's funny. LA is a place that I feel like you don't have to get older. You know, I talk to a lot of friends from like back home and other places. People are starting families, people are buying houses, people are like really getting settled into their lives. But here it's different. It's different.
It is. We are a different breed, I guess.
Yeah.
Also, we can't afford all those things here. I'm like, buying a home here, you have to have double income and some really high double income.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see yourself staying in LA?
That's a good question because I've only lived here all my life. I've never lived outside. I mean, I moved around in LA, but I would love to experience it. I think LA will always be my home. Like, it's home, but I don't know where else in the U.S. I would move to. Yeah. Where, like, considering weather, considering I live by the beach. Yeah. Like, I'm pretty lucky. Yeah. It's you know, but I do like to experience all the seasons, and I do like the Northwest. Yeah. Like Seattle, Oregon, Washington. I like the green, but rainy day all the time, I don't know if I could really, really handle that.
I don't think I could. I used to get really depressed in the rain. Yeah. And I've gotten better about it. Yeah. Like, it doesn't really bother me as much, but I don't know what that would be like to experience it every day.
Right? Like year round. Like, that's a whole different thing. Yeah. I know. I don't know if I could do it. But I like the idea. Like, I want to be like a little witch in the woods. Like, that's how I want to live. Like, have my potions and like herbs, and people come to me for like support. And I'm like, here you go. Let me share some knowledge and wisdom. Take this tincture and go on your merry way.
That's hilarious. I kind of wanted to backtrack because this just popped in my head. But do you remember what you had wrote down and burned when we were in Mexico? And do you remember any of the things that you wrote down?
I don't. Do I? Do you? Did you take a picture of it before you burned it? Or
I feel like I did take a picture of it, but I think one of the things that stood clearest to me was like being confident. Mm-hmm. And I see so much work because that was what, 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was like July 2021.
Yeah,
June, July.
and I feel the progression of my life from that point. I'm curious to know, how have you grown from 2 years ago?
I would say grown professionally for sure. Like I stepped into like a manager leadership role at work in January 2022. So that was huge. I think that was a really big stretch for me to like step into leading.
Yeah.
Which is the shakeup. It was a change I needed in this job to kind of keep me motivated and going. It's like, all right, let's take on a different task and a different role at work. But I would say more personally, I for me was just really having a much healthier perspective on what is my capacity.
Yeah.
Because I was already injured when I went on the trip. So I had to manage a lot of pain already.
Yeah.
So I had to be really honest of like, how much capacity do I have and how can I express my boundaries when I don't have it and be okay with it? Because before then, I'd be down for everything, anything anybody expected of me or wanted from me. I'd be like, sure, I have time, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Here's like, wait, no, do I have energy for this? Can I really do this? And now I'm like, nah, and be okay with that. And so boundaries was huge. Yeah, I would say that. And being open to love.
Yeah.
I think I wasn't in a relationship, but I was trying to open up for that. I don't know if that's what I wrote, but I wanted to be open for a new relationship. That was much more, we were much more aligned and attuned and yeah.
Man, I feel that because I've been having to redefine what love means to me. I feel like our families are our first teachers. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I can definitely say my family taught me and showed me love, like unconditionally, like regardless of how it may have felt in those experiences of like, even like those painful moments.
Yeah.
Like they love to the best of their abilities.
Right.
And, just in my own journey of getting my own tools and growing in my own ways, and even like being more specific to like romantic, but also recognizing like love is the same across the board. And like really pouring into like people's growth and my own growth is really what love feels like right now.
Pouring into someone else's growth.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I think about spiritually. Isn't that the spiritual side of being in partnership is like you're trying to elevate each other in a spiritual way, like helping each other, like, fulfill your goals or conquer some fears of like, kind of like, be a partner in this journey.
Yeah.
Of life.
I never experienced it that way before. I think I'm starting to experience it now, but I didn't experience it that way before because it always felt like a game of like, who's winning, who's losing, and
right. Who's upping one up.
Yeah, and being on a journey of like, I want to see you win. I also want to win, and like communication and boundaries.
Right. That you could have boundaries with your partner and that's not going to rupture anything. Right? I thought that was a big game changer for me too. Yeah. It's like, oh, I could say what I don't like and what's not feeling good. And it's not going to create this problem or argument or
Yeah.
and it'll be respected and honored.
Yeah.
That's possible? What? But it is. It is possible.
It is. And I man, when I think about that, it's scary to be so vulnerable.
Oh, it requires extreme amount of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you allow yourself to be vulnerable in that way? Or because I mean, it may come natural now that you've been maybe doing it for a while, but initially, how was it for you being vulnerable in that way?
In a relationship,
Yeah.
it it was hard, but I think my past experiences in relationships, they've all like prepared me to be more vulnerable at each one. There's like unlocked different levels of vulnerability. And I would say in my current relationship now, it's been the most I've ever been vulnerable. And that's because he's also coming in vulnerable from the
Mm.
beginning. So that was helpful to be like, "Oh, you're really in this too." Right? Cuz I've realized I'm someone who doesn't necessarily lead in a relationship. So if someone's showing me vulnerability, I'm going to match it. If
Mm-hmm.
someone's showing me shitty, I'm going to match shitty, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So that's not good. But unless you have someone who's coming in a very open, healthy, vulnerable way where like I'm going to share all my stuff with you. It's almost a very like take it or leave it, but
Yeah.
here it is. And in that kind of modeled for me or showed me like, all right, I could do this too, you know?
Yeah.
And it's a very different thing being vulnerable because that's my job.
Yeah.
That's very different. Like
Yeah.
I could create space for people to be vulnerable, but for
Mm-hmm.
me, that's still struggle because and I realize when I'm trying to be vulnerable, it still comes with a lot of like achiness and doing it. Like
Yeah.
I'll still cry when I'm like gonna say something
Yeah.
that's like coming really deep,
Yeah.
deep, deep. And I'm like, shit, I wanted to say this with a straight face and it's not happening.
Yeah.
But just like acknowledging like it's gonna be messy when you're vulnerable too.
It is, and that's beautiful to hear that your partner is vulnerable because
Yeah.
in my experiences, I haven't met a whole lot of men that
Yeah.
are vulnerable. It usually requires me
To lead that.
to, yeah, and even with that, sometimes it's still a lot of like pushback on it.
Mm. How's it how's it been now? Are you in a relationship now?
Uh,
Or open to one?
I am getting to know somebody right now.
Nice.
And it has been nice because we both have came in vulnerable.
Mm.
And I think
It's beautiful.
really basing the foundation of friendship.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever
Right.
really truly been friends with a partner. It's kind of just been like just jump in trying to get to know somebody in this romantic way without
Right.
really getting to know who this person is,
Right.
And I think having that base of friendship is like I know how I treat my friends. I know my friends treat me. Like there's a special connection in friendship that's different from like anything because you choose these people to be in your life. So when you look at that romantic partner in that way, for me it's been a different experience.
That's lovely, though. I think friendship has to be the basis of that. Like, do I
Yeah.
enjoy hanging out with you? Just doing like the mundane, boring stuff. Like,
Like just being able to share space.
share the space. Like, you're doing something over there, I'm doing something here, and we're like, it's yeah. And I love the energy that we create together.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think for myself, if I'm being honest, I don't know if I've always been that self aware in dating and relationships. Like I used to get really caught up in fun. So like if I'm going out with this person, we're drinking, we're having a good
Yeah,
time.
yeah. It's all based on fun.
And then
Like,
when I'm burnt out on fun, I'm disconnected.
yeah, yeah.
And it's me. Like a lot of times when I look back, it's like, because I feel like I outgrow a lot of stuff and people to be specific. And I think it's because I'm not being self aware of really connecting with this person. I'm connecting to the experience, but
Right.
not really taking the time to connect to this person.
or the idea of this person.
Exactly.
Right? Not really who they are, but you're
Yeah.
just like, oh, what's the idea of us together?
Mm-hmm.
Or the idea of just being in partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so different from actually being in partnership
Yeah.
instead of the role. And that's something I had to deal with too. Like I would step into like, what's my role as the girlfriend?
Mm-hmm.
And not to take into account like, what do I really want to do here?
Right.
Maybe I don't want to do shit.
Yeah. And having a partner that is okay with you showing up however you show up.
Right. Yeah.
I think that is why I am enjoying dating right now, because I feel so seen to be my full self. Like I'm able to, I don't feel like talking that much today. I'm kind of just really in myself right now.
And that doesn't mean anything. Right?
Exactly. And for that person to recognize like, okay, you just like, they'll check in, but also say, okay, that's where you at today. And I'm going to give you the space to be there and not stress it out. And I love that, because I can very much so be a person like, what can I do? What did I do? What's this? What's that? And like interacting with somebody that doesn't make me feel like I have to do that feels so like, it's like a relief.
Oh, what a sense of relief. Like I could feel it energetically. It was like, in your shoulders too. Like, I don't have to perform. For anybody, especially in this intimate relationship and in the getting to know each other stage still, right?
And it's honestly, everything feels like yoga to me. You know how when you go to yoga and it's like what you learn on the mat, you take out into the world.
Yes.
And I'm really treating my life like yoga. And it's like, okay, what I'm learning in this relationship, I can carry into my friendships, into my family, into all these other connections. And, you know, also recognizing like, it also comes down to how I'm treating myself right now. I think in the past, you know, consciously or subconsciously, I kind of needed validation from, you know, partners or whatever. Like, you know, I've had people pour into me my entire life, but because I was late on the dating, late on, you know, just romantic relationships, I didn't really know my value in those spaces. And to take a break, because I think for my last relationship, I needed a break. Like a break from dating, a break from everything, just to really connect to myself, and finding that connection and meeting somebody that values me in the way that I feel value for myself, like feeling like, oh, this person values me in a way that I value myself. Like that makes sense. And then you start looking at these other relationships and it's like, I don't really feel valued here. I feel like, you know, when we talk about that pouring into your partner, like every relationship should pour into you, because I think you, like myself, we pour into everything that we're part of, you know, so you should be receiving that right back.
And I think that's the hard part. Because for a long time we haven't received that back. So we've taken that as like normalizing that, like, well, I'm just always the giver here. But it's such a beautiful thing when you meet someone who's just the same in their language of like giving love and talking about it. I was gonna also mention like also the pressure, and maybe as like more as a woman, the pressure of like having babies and marriage and all of that whole package. It's such a big thing to also try to release and not bring that into the getting to know each other dating stage, because it's so in the air. And I know that we're in a place where we're like, no, we have so many different ways of living and lifestyles, and you know, we definitely don't have to have babies if we don't want to, but it's still a pretty heavy stream to go against because it's so in the air. I don't know, how do you land with that? But I know as for me, especially Latina woman, pressure is real. Especially now, I'm 35. They're all looking at me. I went to like a friend, my cousin's like gender reveal party, which was, I already had feelings about that. I'm like, but the way they look at me, like I wasn't even the pregnant one, and I felt like I stood out more than everybody else because I was the one not married and with kids and not really that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know.
I think for me, I don't really feel pressure, and I'll be honest, I feel really open. I feel like I know in my life I have like stuff that I would want. Like, yeah, I would love to be married and have kids and stuff, but also like I'm open to whatever life has to offer, and I would never want to put so much pressure on myself or somebody else to feel like that is a requirement to happen. Like I said, I would love for it to happen. I don't have a timeline right now because I feel like there's still some things that I want to do for myself, and I hope that
Yeah.
there's some things that my partner would still want to do for themselves because yeah, I've been in situations where people have told me like, oh, I want to be married by 40, I want to do this by this age, and
Okay.
that feels like pressure.
Yeah.
But I've also had conversations where it's like, hey, I want this, but I don't need it right now.
Yeah.
Like we're still connecting to each other,
Right.
and for that for me is like inspiration. Like, okay,
Yeah.
we align with what we want, so we can have these conversations without it feeling like you're trying to follow some heteronormative trajectory.
Exactly. The idea of putting a date to that is so wild
Yeah.
because that's taking away from like the actual relationship. Like, what if at 40 you guys aren't even on the same page? Like, why would it? Yeah, like why would you put an age to it?
Right.
Um, it's wild. The things that we, you know.
And I think it comes a lot from like these media projections of how things are like people
Yeah.
rather fall in love with the idea of how things are supposed to be as opposed to really looking at how they are. It's like you're
Right.
focused on your goals and your profession. I'm focused on mine. Why are we faking like this is what we want today?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and being really honest with yourself because
Yeah.
you could lie to yourself too of what you think you want when really the reality is so different.
Yeah.
So different.
And I think that's why communication and checking in is so important. Like just knowing it's where you at. Like it may be different tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it could all change in an instance, but just really being able to express yourself and also not leaving like I have a great imagination. My mind could come up with a million things. So rather than living in that, it's like let's talk about it.
Right.
You know?
Let's bring it down. Like it's a grounding.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, we could be on, I'm up here.
Mm-hmm.
Like my partner and I do like a chakra test, like
Oh,
a
wow.
check in, like when we're in bed. And I love it. Like we'll like touch each other's like chakras. And it's funny how we could be attuned with what's open and what's not. And for him, he's always grounded. So like his like the sacral, the root chakra is much more grounded. But him up here, like the crown and the third eye, it's so closed. And it's always the opposite. I'm not grounded myself.
Yeah.
But when he's touching my third eye and crown and my connection to the universe, it's like wide open. So it's pretty wild sometimes.
So can you explain that more for myself and the listeners? Because I'm curious to know more about how do you check in, like with you and your partner. Like, what are you supposed to feel for? Like, I would love to hear more about the process.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be different for everybody but how I do it and how we've done it is just, so we literally like are laying in bed, right? And what we'll do is like, I'll put my hand over each chakra, right? So it's like the crown, the top of the head, third eye between the eyebrows, and then the throat chakra, which is in your throat, then the heart, where the heart is, and then the solar plexus, where it's like, you know, your belly, and then the sacral, which is like right under your belly, and then the root, which is like your bottom, like, and of course they all have different characteristics of like different elements of your life, right? Like spirituality is definitely the one crown, right? Your connection to the universe, something bigger than yourself. The third eye, right, is like seeing beyond what's the reality, right? And I think we're all very spiritual, creative people. So the things that are hard to explain, right, that we could see beyond something, or our imagination, like we could imagine something that's not here yet, right? That takes some visualization, right? And that's pretty magical when you think about. But your throat then representing your communication, right? How can you express boundaries? How could you express what you're thinking and feeling, and having power in that? And then your heart, right? Feeling open to love or just um, relationships. Just this is also when we may hold resentment and sorrow and grief, right? And then your solar plexus was your belly. That's your other brain. That's like your gut, right? So it's your other area of like confidence and power, right? Like a lot of power and decision making can come from your gut.
Yeah.
Right. And then your sacral, which is your creativity. This is where a lot of us understand ourselves and what we want to do in the world. And then our root is like our foundation to this earth, or our foundations, our ancestors, or our lineage, right? So how we do it, right? We're touching each of these areas with our hands. And what I do is like we'll close our eyes and just really be open to anything that comes up. Like if there's a sound, if there's a specific image that comes to mind, or a word, or nothing, right? And then I think it's very subjective. We start to interpret what that means, and I'll ask them, like, after I do it, I'm like, oh, I felt this when I touched your heart. How did you feel when I touched your heart? And we'll kind of share with each other, and we're often like on the same page. Like he'll touch I was touching his heart, and what I envisioned in my head was like going through a lot of different rooms and a lot of obstacles. And when I talked to him about it, like, this is what came up for me, he's like, definitely. And he's like, and it was very representative of like how his house looks like. Because right now, like, he's going through some depression. So he's like, his house is like not really clean and stuff. And usually those are the things that we let go of when we're like in it, right?
Yeah.
But that felt like it was so symbolic of how he feels inside, right? So yeah, it's a really great practice, I think, of like creating intimacy, but really checking in with each other.
That almost got me emotional, like just hearing it. Like that's
it
beautiful.
is beautiful. I think it's gotten us really close to really go deep that way.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. You should try it.
I am going to try it out. And y'all should try it out also.
Yeah.
What would you say is the difference between love and care?
Love and care. I think care is part of love. I think love feels very like overarching, encompassing of a lot. I think it's hard to define love in itself, but I think care is like a partial definition of love, right? Like I think of like communities of care, right? Like we are here to support each other, to lean on each other, to, in a sense, be of service to each other. Yeah, and I think of care as something really soft. I think that's what came to mind. And love is just really big, bold, and red. But care is like a way to show love, I would say.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is there a difference?
I don't know. I think about that a lot. I've been reading the book All About Love.
Bell Hooks.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a heavy good one.
It's been making me explore it because I think there are people that I care deeply about.
Yes.
And then I think there are people that, by her definition, that I really love. That I thought there are people that I thought I loved that I actually just really care about.
Okay.
Because she defined love as like, kind of like what we talked about earlier, being invested in somebody's spiritual growth or your own spiritual growth. And there are people that I don't take the time to invest in them spiritually, and I give them the space to be themselves without pouring into them to be better. Does that make sense?
A little bit, yeah.
And I take that as I love them for who they are, but maybe I just really care about them.
Okay.
You know. But I
So
don't
how
know.
would you know if you love someone?
I think sometimes for me, loving somebody can sometimes be me stepping away.
Yeah.
You know, and really giving them the space to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could be part of.
Yeah, like I don't think in love I have to always be directly connected to them all the time.
Yeah, I think that's a beautiful part of boundaries, right? That you
Yeah.
could have this, if it's a separation, but still it's out of love.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how some of my relationships ended. It's like, I'm going to love you, but I'm going to love you from afar. Because in real life or in real terms, like there's much, we need more than love too in relationships for them to work. And sometimes if it's just love, like that might not be enough for the relationship. So I may need to step away, but there's still love because I wish the best for you.
Yeah, and I think that feels like the real love. Like almost to stay in a situation like that, and not even just on the romantic end, but like something that's not servicing me, but I'm here because of comfort or something like that. That doesn't make me or this person bad, but it may not actually be love. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. How about when you're in it with someone and love?
When I'm in it with somebody, I feel like really creating space for them and pouring into their well-being, like in all of their well-being, but really creating space for them to show up however they do. Because I think I've definitely been a person in the past that would see people's potential and try to pour into that.
Oh yeah,
And
I think we all done that.
yeah, and I don't do that no more because that doesn't feel healthy for me or for the other person. So
right.
a lot of times I share what I feel, but I don't have any expectations of somebody to do or be more than what they are.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think that's the healthy part of like letting go of the expectations and first realize that you have them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I actually desire all these things for you. But if they're not ready to do that for themselves, then we're going to burn out in relationships.
And you have to really be okay with that. And that goes back to the stepping away. Like,
is it going to work for me?
Yeah. Like I don't like watching people just crash and burn. So sometimes for me, I not even looking away. It's just like, I just gotta focus here. I gotta look in the mirror because something like I think in every connection we have, something about that connection reminds us of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
That's why we definitely like when you see somebody doing something, you get mad about that shit. It's usually because there's something in you that is tied to that, whether it be from your past, your present, or whatever. Yeah. And I'm learning that, and rather than just cutting people off or I have to go fix what's in me that's triggering this in me,
right?
So I can return back to this in a healthy way,
right? That it's more about us in that moment and how we could just project. Like if I could fix whatever you're dealing with, I don't have to face my stuff, right? It's kind of like, it's a way to neglect yourself.
Yeah,
I think it's I've done a lot of that. It's neglecting myself in relationships just because this role I want to take on, or just like the savior complex too. I was like, why the fuck am I trying to save anybody? And then it's like, but when you really think about it, you're going back to like your own relationship with your family.
Yeah.
And the ways that we're trying to just seek what we didn't get, right? And get those needs met. And that's what attention, care, unconditional love, right? Just feeling seen. It's all of those things. So, to being seen.
Yes, to being seen.
Yes.
So I wanted to transition to a little lighter portion of the podcast. This is called 5 Questions of Freedom. So I'm
Cool.
gonna ask you
I've
5 questions.
heard these in other episodes. I forgot you do this. All right, I'm ready.
And you can answer them any way you like.
Okay.
It's sponsored by Feel Free to Feel Free. The first question is tattoos or piercings?
Oh, tattoos.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yoga or skating?
Yoga.
Okay.
Yoga Yoga because it's safe.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm going
That's
with
fair.
safety.
If you could have anybody on your podcast, who would it be?
Anybody?
Anybody, dead or alive?
Oh. Wow. That's going to take a minute. Dead or alive? Actually, you know what? My grandma, my dad's mom, I realized she was someone who really lived in her own truth.
Yeah.
And was just a go-getter, and she would travel on her own, and yeah, she was just a badass, and I didn't get to know her as much as I would have liked while she was living.
Yeah.
So I would want to have a lot of questions just to get to know her and try to understand me a little better in having those conversations, just because sometimes I feel like I'm an oddball in my family.
Yeah.
Of like, I do things on my own. Like what we talked about earlier, like I don't necessarily want to get married right now or have kids maybe at all. And just like, where does this come from? Like, I know I'm not the only person in my lineage that's had, that is, not living or conforming to how we're been trained to, especially as women. So I think my grandma could be a start to just really know that more about myself through her.
That's real. And it's funny because I think my mom's mom would probably be my guess if I could talk to anybody, just because we were really close. And I think we were close in the relationship of a grandson and a grandmother, but I would love to just know more about who she was as a person, because I think I realized when she passed just how similar we were. Like, she was very much so a loner.
Yeah.
But people loved to be around her.
Yeah.
And she was deep. Like, we definitely had like deep conversations. And I just would love to like really show her myself in my fullness as an adult and really get to know who she was in her fullness, because she was single my entire life. Never saw her with a partner. And my grandmother, who's still living, my dad's mom, she's been married my entire life. And I almost would want to see them have a conversation of like what those two different experiences were like, to be partnered for life and then to not be partnered for a good majority of your life.
Right. And I love that you had the experience though to have those like moments to get to know her, because I never had the experience of being close to a grandparent, and I feel like I was a little robbed by that in my life.
That's real.
Because I feel like that's a very sacred, special relationship to have, that is not your parent, but it's an elder that could ideally bestow some wisdom and share what they've learned. And I just never really had that. So that's beautiful.
I appreciate that. I do. My fourth question is, what is one piece of advice you would give to your younger self?
I would tell her that it's okay to be who you are. Like, you definitely, I was someone who wanted to fit in so bad as a kid and would just like befriend people who didn't really have necessarily best intentions, and it wasn't like reciprocal friendships, but it was all to survive in school and feel somewhat accepted in some kind of group. And so I wish I could have been okay with being a loner then.
Yeah.
And not have to put myself in circles that weren't really good for me. So yeah, I wish I was a happy loner as a kid.
That's real. That's real. And what is one reminder that you want to give to your future self?
It's a good one. The first thing that came to mind was of like, what would my future self tell me now for some reason? And I want to say my future self wants to tell me to like be patient. But what would I say to my future self? I'd say thank you. I wouldn't say there's an advice. I'd say like thank you.
Yeah.
For sticking it out in whatever you wanted to do. You stuck it out and didn't give up, or you just held on to your dreams or your ideas of how you wanted to live your life, and you did it.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Angie, where can the people find you?
Well, I guess I'd shout out my podcast, but really, so this
You
page,
can shout out your podcast.
yeah,
out everything.
Yeah.
Give them
But
everything.
I'll focus on Sagrada Casa just because that's definitely something I want to grow. And it's a podcast now, but it started off as just my love for like interior decorating and home decor, and it being such a beautiful escape from like the real world. And I do believe that the way we are intentional in like creating our spaces really affects our internal world, and vice versa. Like I know when I'm not having a good day, where it's reflected on my environment, it's reflected in my house. And so it's such a relationship we have with our homes. So I love the idea of that, especially in the mental health world. But yeah, it turned into a podcast about everything. It's not even just that. And I love one friend who told me, she was like, it's like your podcast is like a house, and you're talking about different rooms of your house, but it's like different elements of you.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's a cool way to think about it. I like that. But yes, people can find me on IG, sagrada.casa, or the podcast, which is Sagrada Casa. And yeah, that's it, I think.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I appreciate you so much for coming on the show. I feel like this was overdue. And
I know, right?
Man, like I look forward to listening back to this conversation because I feel like we got really deep. And I also look forward to trying out your practice as well.
Oh, which practice?
With the chakras, because that really touched me. Like I felt it, so I'm looking forward to that.
I love that, and yeah, let me know, or maybe tell the people.
I for how sure was will. That? You know what? I might do that. I might share what that experience is like. Yeah. Thank you for being on the show. Well,
thank you for inviting me. I do feel like it was overdue, but I think also timing is
everything happens
always
in divine
perfect,
timing,
right? So, I think I was just supposed to be here right now.
Yeah.
So
yes,
appreciate you, Mike.
Of course, I appreciate you. I appreciate y'all for listening. This is Mike Brown, and this is The Art of Letting Go. Peace.